Yeah, sorry. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم 2 فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم يرى الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Assalamu alaikum. We're going to have 10 minutes Quran Khani for Marhum Al-Hajj Ali Ghulam Hussain Muhammad Sharif. The Qurans are here at the front.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وغزل كل شيء وذلل كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء. يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تهتك العصام. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقام. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء. اللهم اغفر لي كل أذى من أذنبت وكل خطيئة أخطأتها. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك واستشفع بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلهمني ذكرك. اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا. اللهم وسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته ونزل بك عند شدائد حاجته وعزم فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم عزم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وزهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوب غافرا ولا لكبائه ساترا ولا لشيء من ملك بالحسن يبدل غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك. ظلمت نفسي وتجرعت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي كم من كبه سترت وكم من فاده من البلاء يقلت وكم من إثار وقيت وكم من مكروه دفعت وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرت. اللهم أعظم بلائي وفرت بي سوء حالي وقسوت بي أعمالي وقعدت بي أغلالي وحبسني النفي بعد أملي وخدعت الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بجناية مثالي. يا سيدي فأسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجبنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي ولا تفزاني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري ولا تعاجل بالعقوبة على ما عملت في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بذاتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك أسأل كشف الزر والنظر في أمري. إلهي مولاي جريت علي حكما اتبعت في هوى نفسي ولم أحترس في من تزيين عدوي فغرني بما أهوى وأسأله على ذلك القضاء فتجاوزت ما جرى علي من ذلك بعد حدودك وخالفت بعض أوامرك فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي في قضاءك وألزمني حكمك بلاؤك. وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مدئنا معترفا. لا أجد مفر مما كان مني ولا مفزا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في ساعة من رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ذري وفكني من شد وثاقي يا رب ارحم زعف بدني وركة جلدي ودكة عزمي يا من بدا خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي هبني لابتداء كرمك وصالح ركابي يا إلهي وسيدي وربي أتراك معزي بنارك بعد توحيدك وبعد من تواي علي قلبي من معرفتك ولهج بي لساني من ذكرك واعتقده زميلي من حبك وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خازيا لربوبيتك هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تزي من ربيت أو تبعد من أدنيت أو تشرد من آويت أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمت وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي مولاي أتسلط النار على وجوه أخرت لعظمتك ساجدا وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقا وشكرك مادحا وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققا وعلى زمائر حوت من العلم بك حتى سعت خاشعا وعلى جواري سعت إلى أطوان تعبدك طائعا وأشعرت باستغفارك مدئنا ما هاك الظن بك ولا أخبرنا بفضلك إنك يا كريم يا ربي وأنت تعلم زعفي أن قليل بلاء دنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من مكاره على أهلها على أن ذلك بلاء مكروه قليل المكثو يسير البقاء قصير مدته فكيف احتمال بلاء الآخرة وجليل قوي المكاره فيها وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض يا سيدي فكيف لي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين يا إلهي وربي وسيدي مولاي لي الأمور إليك أشكو ولما من أزج وأبكي لآلم العذاب وشدتي أملتوا للبلاء مدتي فلئن سيرت للقبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بين أهل بلائك وفرقت بين أحبائك وأوليائك فابني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك وابني صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجاء عفوك فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناطقا لأزيجن إليك بين أهل زجيج الآملين ولا أصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين ولا أبكن عليك بكاء الفاقدين ولو نادينك إن كنت يا ولي المؤمنين يا غاية أمل العارفين يا غياث المستغيثين يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين ويا إله العالمين أفتراك سبحانك يا إله بحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجنا فيها مخالفتك وذاك طعم عذابها من معصيتك وبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته ويزج إليك زجيجا ومن رحمتك ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك يا مولاي فكيف يبقى في العذاب ويرجو ما سلف من حلمك أم كيف تؤلم النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك أم كيف يرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانا أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم زعفا أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقا أم كيف تزجر زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا ربا أم كيف يرجو فضلك في إتق منها وتتركه فيها هيهات ما ذلك الظن بك والمعروف من فضلك ولا مشبن لما عاملت بالموحدين من برك وإحسانك باليقين أقطوا لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحدك وقضيت به من إخلاد معاندك لجعلت النار كل بردا وسلاما وما كانت لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأ من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين وأن تجل ثناؤك كل مبتدعا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستمون إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من علي أجريتها أن تاب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمت وكل ذنب أذنبت وكل كبه أسررت وكل جهل عملته كتمت وعلنت أغفيت وأزهرته وكل سيئة أمرت بإثبات الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم وبرحمتك أغفيت وبفضلك سترت وأن توفر عز من كل خير أنزلت أو إحسان فزلت أو بر نشرت أو رزق بسطها أو ظلم تغفر أو خطأ تستر يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا إلهي وسيدي مولاي ومالك الرق يا من بيدي ناصيتي يا عليم بالزر مسكنتي يا خبير الفكر بفقر وفاقتي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب أسألك بحقك وقدسك وعزم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورا وبخدمتك موصولا وأعمال عندك مقبولا حتى تكون آمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا وهالي في خدمتك سرمدا يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب قوي على خدمتك جوارحي واشدد لزيمتي جوانحي وابلي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك حتى أسرى إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرى إليك في البارزين واشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين وأدن منك دنو المخلصين وأخافك مخافة الموقنين واجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين اللهم من أرادني بسوء فارده ومن كادني فكده واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك وأقرب منزلة منك وخاسم زلفة لديك فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك وجد لي بجودك واعطف علي بمجدك واحفظني برحمتك واجعل لسان بذكرك لهجا وقلبي بحبك متيما ومن علي بحسن إجابتك واقلني أثرتي واغفر زلتي فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك وأمرتهم بدعائك وزمنت لهم الإجابة فإليك يا رب نسبت وجهي وإليك يا رب مددت يدي وبعزتك استجب لي دعائي وبلغني منايا ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي يا سريع الرزا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء فإنك فعال لما تشاء يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وسلاحه البكاء يا سابق النعم يا دافع النقم يا نور المستوحشين في الظلم يا عالما لا يعلم صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بي ما أنت أهله وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا.
Sheikh Bilal, respected elders, brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum. Tonight's Surah Yasin has been sponsored for the Ithal Thawab of the Marhumeens that are displayed on the screen. Let us all recite Surah Fatiha for all Marhumeens, as well as for all Marhumeens of the Ratani, Walji, and Ali Sharif family. Tomorrow, Friday, Salatul Jummah will begin at 11:15 a.m., starting with Dua and Nudba, followed by a prayer workshop starting at 7 p.m., the Covenant with the Divine with Sheikh Bilal, in which we will be learning about Salatul Jafar al-Thayyar. On Saturday, we will be having, on Saturday at 4:45 p.m., we will be celebrating the Wiladat of Bibi Zainab alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Starting with Yasin, Salat, Yasin, Hadith Kisa, Munajat, Majlis by Sheikh Bilal, the Nikah ceremony of Farnaz and Hussein, the bride and groom family speeches, Ziyarat and Niyaz. We are having a Thanksgiving food drive on Saturday, November 18th from 12 to 2 p.m. at The Inn. It's on Madison Avenue in Hempstead, New York. Please join us in feeding the needy. All members are welcome to join, and especially family with young children are highly encouraged to participate. We can drop off non-perishable food items such as canned foods, bottled drinks, boxed cereals, and healthy snacks. For more information, you can contact Sister Anar or Sister Fatima. The phone numbers have been sent out on the newswire. For the prayer workshop tomorrow at 7 p.m., we're going to join Sheikh Bilal to learn about this special prayer for answering hajat, understanding the history and the process, fiqh, and completing the session with offering a tutorial recitation of the prayer of Salatul Jafar al-Tayyar. Lastly, please join me in reciting the ayah of Amma Yujib 5 times for all those who are sick here and around the world. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibul mustaraiza da'u wa yakshifu su. 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 Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Please recite a loud salawat as we call up Sheikh Bilal. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
رحم الله من يقرأ سورة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. الحمد لله رب العالمين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعنة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، وقد قال إمامنا جعفر بن محمد الصادق: من يضمن لي 4 أبيات في الجنة: أنفقوا ولا تخف الفقر، وأفش السلام في العالم، واترك المراء وإن كنت محقا، وأنصف الناس من نفسك. صدق مولانا إمامنا جعفر الصادق عليه السلام. Your second salawat for love of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. And your loudest salawat for ta'ajil faraj sahib al-asr wa zaman. In beginning our discussion, we mentioned a few points of fiqh. And one of the interesting areas of fiqh is the concept of waqf. Waqf is one of the types of agreements that can exist between people. Now, in Islam, the two main categories of fiqh is one is the relationship between man and Allah, and the other is the relationship between man and other members of the community and society. Every type of interaction that we can have with people, there is some regulation and instruction that goes with it, including even the concept of hiba that we've talked about, which is a gift, and the concept of waqf, which is called an endowment, a charitable endowment. When we talk about the idea of a waqf or a charitable endowment, one of the important points to note is that a waqf is something that when it is given, the object, its benefits, everything is restricted to the location where it's given. It cannot be bought, it cannot be sold, it cannot be inherited. Now, when we talk about what is a waqf and where it goes, one of the most relevant places of why this conversation comes up is that at times we make an endowment or a waqf that is given to, for example, the Husayniyah, or we give it as an endowment or a benefit that is given to family or friends or to an organization. When, for example, we give something to the Husayniyah, there are two formats in which we can give. One is a gift, which gives the freedom to the Husayniyah to do with it and to spend with it however it pleases. The other is when we give something to the Husayniyah as a waqf. When an item is given to the Husayniyah as a waqf, that item now has to remain within the facility. It cannot be taken out, it cannot be sold, it cannot be bought, it cannot be gifted. It has to remain in its purpose within the facility. And further to that, should it come to the point that it has no benefit with it, then if it has to be sold because it can't fulfill its purpose anymore, it doesn't function anymore, if it's sold, even that benefit that comes from its selling has to be reapplied to the same purpose it was initially intended. A waqf is very restrictive in that regard. Therefore, there are certain points that are important to understand about how a waqf comes into place, and there are certain general ahkam with it. First and foremost, as we mentioned, a waqf, an endowment, cannot be bought or sold, cannot be gifted or inherited by anyone, except in specific circumstances which are very rare. As there is with every rule in Islam, there are points in time where there are exceptions. Some of the exceptions, for example, if by the possession of this item a person can come to harm or come to loss, or it endangers the cause of which it is supposed to benefit, if it causes some kind of harm or there's no benefit left, then it can be sold in that sense and replaced or taken in place of something else. When it comes to what is a waqf, there are two ways of understanding it. One is called waqf al-tahriri and waqf al-tamliqi. Waqf al-tahriri applies specifically to masajid. Now, understand something. There's a difference between a Husayniyah and a masjid. The ahkam of a masjid are very specific. But if someone goes and makes the waqf of a masjid, there is no ownership of that masjid at that point in time. And in America, it doesn't quite apply that way because of how ownership and property laws exist. But in a Muslim country, if someone makes the intention of building a masjid, anoints a masjid, there is no one who owns that facility, and this is known as waqf al-tahriri. It is something that we created as an endowment that exists completely on its own. The other is called waqf al-tamliqi, that endowment that has ownership or possession, that someone is in charge of that property, someone has the right and has the position of being a trustee or a manager for that facility. Most of the waqf that we'll see in our country that we live in now is waqf tamliqi, meaning that there is someone who is given that property, or the endowment is in trust of an individual who then has the right to then spend with it, to fix it, to allocate it, to manage that process, and how that process will be utilized will be under their authority. Same way that if we were to come, for example, and present a waqf to our Husayniyah of, let's say, Quran, that endowment or waqf of those Quran, the management of the Husayniyah would have the authority to ensure that the waqf, the endowment, is enacted and used as it was intended and purposed, and it is not lost from this place or taken away from this place. When we take a look at the other way of understanding a waqf, there is waqf al-am and waqf al-khas. Waqf al-am is that endowment that is for the general public to benefit from. For example, when we make the waqf of a school, an endowment of a school, an endowment of a Husayniyah, an endowment of a medical facility, that is waqf al-am, that for the general public it is intended to benefit them. The other category of waqf al-khas is, for example, if I make an endowment to my family to ensure that, for example, my generations own this property, and I establish an endowment for these children that will come, and I structure this endowment, it is only for this family or for these people. Or for example, there is a marhum, and to take care of his family, for that marhum's family, I establish an endowment. The only people who can benefit from that waqf are those people that it is khas and specific for them. When it comes to establishing an endowment, there are a few points to notice. Simply making the niyyah of the endowment is not sufficient. Let me give you an example. I go and I purchase 20 Quran, and I make the intention that I will make waqf with them. But before I come to the masjid, before I come to the center and bring the waqf there, I pass away. Or let's say, for example, let's be a little bit more positive, maybe not that negative. Fazli Bhai got worried there for a second. Stay with me, Fazli Bhai, I promise it's not that bad. Let's say I change my mind. I don't want to do a waqf because I found in my family there are children who don't have Quran. So here I am giving away this property to the Husayniyah when in my own house they don't have it. I made the intention, but simply making the intention doesn't make it a waqf. I have to enact the intention. I have to give the object, then the waqf takes place. Which is why a waqf requires both intention and action. Another way that a waqf can take place is that I go and I perform an action that is in line with a waqf. For example, we go to ziyarat. May Allah give us all tawfiq. Within the haram of the imam, there is a room for hadaya and wuquf, that where you can go and leave a gift, or you can make something an endowment. I don't make the intention, I don't announce, but I walk into this room and I say, or I place the object in this room and leave it there, and the intention is that this is a waqf. Or for example, in the Husayniyah, we have a place where waqf can be placed. Or for example, I put a sticker on an object that says this is waqf for this Husayniyah, and I bring it in and I place it there. I don't have to come in and have the conversation and say, yes, this is waqf, it has to stay here. Now, understanding all of this and understanding how the benefit of a waqf can be restricted, it's important to understand that when we give a gift at times to Husayniyah or a location, what is our intention? If we make the intention of waqf and make the restriction, we have now restricted the facility to only one benefit and only one structure of utilizing that item until it becomes talaf, until it becomes destroyed, and even then the investment has to be made back into the facility. Rather, many times what we can do is we can make the intention of hadiyah or gift to the facility. This way, the facility has the ability to utilize the item for the purpose it's intended, and then afterwards, if the object persists or if it can benefit another person, they have the freedom to go out and select which benefit to do. You'll take a look and see that in some of the haram now, they've changed this and made this a part of the process of announcing and saying that we want these as gifts, not as waqf. I'll give you an example. Everybody's okay, right? It's just meant to be interesting. The turba that you see in a haram. Many people come and they want to give turba to the haram. If the intention of that turba is waqf, it becomes very difficult because that turba then is utilized. If it turns into dust, they still can't remove it. They have to go and they have to turn it back into new turba and utilize it again. It has to stay in that place. However, the haram now accepts these turba as hadiyah, as a gift. And what it does is some of the turbas that are of appropriate size and shape are retained within the haram, and then others the haram offers as gifts, that you can go to a various room within the haram, and there they have a box and they say anyone who comes to the haram of Hazrat Abbas or Imam Hussein or Imam Ali is entitled to take one turba that has been gifted and is a gift to you from the haram, to serve a benefit and a purpose for all people. This way, the intention of the person who wanted to ensure that something that they brought to the haram was used for ibadah by the mu'mineen is still fulfilled. And at the same point in time, it does not create an excess of responsibility upon the haram to execute it. In the same sense, we can do this in our own communities, in our own houses, is to pay attention that what is the intention with which we are making the donation to our community in our center, or in which intention are we making the responsibility of executing our gift. When we make it a waqf, we have to ensure that even the facility that's, for example, a sujjada, a musalla that is given as a waqf, that sujjada, that musalla, that janamaz has to be used until it can't be used anymore. Then that cloth that's left over has to be repurposed or sold, or in some way any benefit that can be extracted is extracted and then again given back to purchase the next sajjada, the next musalla janamaz that is placed in this facility. It can't be used for anything different. In comparison, we make a hadiyah. It's used, and eventually then, for example, it's given to someone as a gift. It's used for another purpose, it's used for a benefit, and then we can persist with this. In this way, understanding that waqf has certain qawa'id and responsibilities is one of the responsibilities that when we learn about it, we learn better how to serve our community and to fulfill our intention of giving gifts in the way of Allah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad. One of the interesting discussions comes from this hadith of our sixth Imam, in which one of the companions, who is known as Muawiyah ibn Wahab, narrates an authentic narration from our sixth Imam, in which our Imam says, "Man yadhmana li arba'atan bi arba'atin abyatin fil jannah." One, whoever can guarantee me 4 things, I guarantee for him 4 houses in paradise. The Imam's ability to guarantee paradise and his promise to guarantee paradise is not something new, but rather he has done so in the past as well too. However, this becomes an interesting discussion where the Imam is insisting and saying, I am the guarantor if you can fulfill these 4 characteristics. Therefore, for us to understand that the Imam is not only promising Jannah, but promising 4 houses in Jannah, is something that's an important characteristic for us to follow and something for us to pay attention to. The first of these that the Imam says, and we'll briefly look at these 4 characteristics to apply them within our own ability and our own houses, with your loudest of salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The Imam first says, أنفقوا ولا تخف الفقر. That the first thing of the qualities that will guarantee you a house in Jannah is the one who gives charity without fear of poverty. The idea of giving charity is something that Allah has repeated many times. Infaq, and to give in the way of Allah, and to give and to spend, is something that Allah discusses many times in the Quran. For example, in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah says, مَثَلُ الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ أَمْوَالَهُمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ كَمَثَلِ الْحَبَّةٍ أَنْبَتَتْ سَبْعَ سَنَابِلَ فِي كُلِّ سُنْبُلَةٍ مِئَةَ حَبًّا وَاللَّهُ يُضَاعِفُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ وَاللَّهُ وَاسِعٌ عَلِيمٌ. Allah describes in Surah Al-Baqarah, in one of the most significant, or one of the many important verses where Allah discusses the giving and infaq, Allah says the parable of those who spend their property in the way of Allah is the parable of a grain growing 7 ears, and with 100 grains in every ear. That's one grain has within its 7 ears, and within those 7 ears each one possesses 100 grains in every ear. And Allah multiplies for whom He pleases, and Allah is ample giving and knowing. Here Allah Himself is promoting the process of giving, which is repeated many times in the Quran as well as in hadith, where we see the hadith, another hadith from our sixth Imam, where he says, there are 3 who Allah gives him, then he has attained great success. If Allah says that if a man possesses one of these qualities, then heaven is mandatory upon him. And the first of these is al-infaqu min al-iqtar. That's one who gives in a state of poverty, then it is as if he has received the promise of heaven from Allah Himself. This concept of giving in all types is one of the things that Allah promotes. Infaq, as a general concept, has 2 categories. The first of these categories of infaq is that infaq which is wajib, and the second is that infaq which is mustahab. Wajib infaq has within it 5 doors, which we'll mention briefly because it's not the significant point of our conversation. The first type of infaq that is wajib upon us is to spend upon our spouses, and the obligation that we have when a man gets married to take care of their spouse. This is wajib upon him. The second type of infaq is that which is done upon the children and the parents. When a person has children, it is wajib upon them to take care of and to maintain their children. It also becomes wajib if the parents are in a state of what is called faqr, poverty. That type of poverty that they do not possess ma'unatis sana. They do not have enough to cover their annual expenses. It becomes mandatory upon the son to then spend upon his parents, and it is wajib for them to do it. Third category of what is infaq al-wajib is that which is done on ma yamliqul yad al-ayman, that which is owned by the right hand, which in the old days was the possession of servants and slaves. That if one had a servant or slave in their house, you couldn't just own them, you also had to take care of their living expenses. The fourth of these, wajib infaq, is that which is wajib khums or wajib zakat or wajib kafara. Those wajib expenses that come with the possession of wealth and become obligatory upon us when certain conditions are met. The fifth of these categories is the action of spending for wajib hajj. That when hajj becomes wajib, the ability to spend for the expenses of hajj also becomes wajib. These are the 5 main categories. Their specific characteristics are mentioned in books of fiqh. It's not something that is difficult to find. But the discussion for tonight is that which Allah is describing, or which the Imam is describing in this hadith, is أَنْفَقُوا وَلَا تَخَفَّ الْفَقْرَ, spend and do not fear poverty. When we talk about the infaq al-mustahab, that infaq, that spending, which is recommended to spend and not wajib upon you to spend. When it comes to the types of mustahab spending, there are 2 main categories. One is sadaqah, that the giving of charity. Allah Himself promotes the concept of charity, whether we take a look at in the Quran. إن تبدوا الصدقات فنعم هي وإن تخفوها وتؤتوها الفقراء فهو خير لكم. In verse number 271 of Surah Baqarah, Allah gives the instruction. He says, if you give charity openly, it is well for you, and if you hide it and give it to the poor, it is better for you. Allah here is promoting that mustahab charity to be given to people that are in need. There are many places where this charity is beneficial to us, and the giving of charity is something that is promoted. The a'mal al-taqwiniya, the practical worldly benefits of giving charity are actually many. That when we give charity, it's not for one benefit, but many things that come to our benefit. The effects that we receive in our life is that, one, it's described as doing business with Allah. That's one who gives in a state of difficulty. If you find yourself in financial difficulty, give charity. It is as if you are doing business with Allah. It also cures the sick, that if we ourselves possess a sickness, or if, for example, someone in our house is suffering through illness and sickness, one of the cures for that is to give charity. The Ahlul Bayt explain, use the dua and the dawa. The dawa for your family is to give charity, that where there is nothing else that is working, use the medicine of charity to protect your family and your loved ones. It also reduces the difficulties of the deceased. When we see the hadith of our Holy Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and that there is no time more difficult on your marhum than their first night when they leave this world. And he says, ease their difficulties by the giving of charity, is an instruction to say that there is a very practical benefit to this giving of this charity. The other thing is that this charity has the ability to remove difficulties from our life, even if someone didn't happen to be a Muslim. This becomes a very interesting discussion, that the idea of giving charity and removing difficulties doesn't just benefit Muslimin, but any and every human being benefits from this. To explain this, there is a story from our Holy Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Quick story time, we're okay? I have 2 stories tonight. This is the first. I have one more after this. In this story, it's narrated that our Prophet was walking with his companions when they passed a Jewish man who was collecting wood. Rasulullah looked at the Jewish man and he said to his companions, before this day ends, this Jewish man will be bitten by a snake and will die from its poison before night comes. And he walked away. When it came time for Maghrib, after Maghrib, they saw the Jewish man walking with the wood piled on his head, walking back into the city. The companions became surprised. They said, it's never happened that our Prophet has made an explanation like this, except that it's come true. So they immediately went to Rasulullah and said, Ya Rasulullah, are you sure you had the right man? Are you sure you were talking about the right person? Rasulullah says, bring him to me. So the companions immediately go, they bring the man with the wood. Rasulullah says to the man, put the wood that you're carrying on your head, put it down and open it. Sure enough, when he put it down and opened it, there was a serpent inside of there that would have bit him. Rasulullah says to the Jewish man, he says, tell me of some deeds that you have done. What good, unique deed did you do today that you don't normally do? And the Jewish man says, my day was normal. But he says, oh yeah, this morning when I left, I had with me my breakfast, which was 2 pieces of bread. When I took them out of my bag and I started to eat one, a poor man came to me and said, can I have the other piece? I said, sure, and I gave it to him. And Rasulullah explained that you're giving that piece of bread to the poor man, that act of charity was sufficient that it protected you from this serpent having had bitten you today, and your life would have ended in this moment. This explanation shows that one of the great benefits that we have is the idea of this giving of charity and how it can protect us from any type of difficulty. Which brings us to one question, that if this infaq is so important, what is the best time and the best way to give this charity? In understanding this, we have a hadith from our Holy Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, where our Prophet says, give charity when you are in good health and good wealth. Do not wait till the moment when your soul has reached your neck, when it has reached your throat, meaning you're on the verge of death, to then try and give charity and offer assistance to someone. The best charity is that which a person gives when they are not in a state of difficulty. When they have plenty and are worried about nothing, in that moment be charitable, so that in your moments of difficulty, Allah will show you kindness. The second type of recommended spending that comes, and the second category of spending that is recommended, though it is not wajib, is that which improves the conditions of our family and provides and raises the status of our family. You see, one is the aspect of providing the necessities and essentials of your family, but it's also from the mustahabbat that for our family and our relatives, when there is someone in need there, that we take care of their needs before we proceed to somebody else. In this way, we take a look and we see that the statement of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, Allahu al-Jamil wa yuhibb al-Jamal, that Allah Himself is beautiful and He loves beauty. Therefore, ordain yourself and use the barakah of Allah's ni'mah that He gives you in this life to ensure that you beautify yourself. In this aspect, it's one of the recommended things that we take care of, and we give gifts to our family members, we take care of our relatives, and we ensure that the quality that we present our families with is not just the bare minimum that is wajib upon us, but we give them good things and enjoy from the bounties that Allah has given us. There is an aspect that talks about the idea of how do we balance between these two, of giving of charity and taking care of our family. And in understanding this, the ulama have written of a famous parable. I call it a parable because its nusus are something that are difficult to determine and ensure. But in this parable, they draw the example of a woman whose husband has died. And she wants to do some khair for her husband who is deceased. Therefore, on Thursday night, she cooks food and then instructs her orphan young child to go and give the food that she has cooked to the poor people of the city. And sure enough, the first Thursday night comes, she cooks and prepares this food, and she says to her orphan son, who is still a minor, and she has the obligation to provide, go and give this to the poor. That orphan son goes, and he himself is hungry, but he says, the khair that my mother has instructed me to do, he goes and he gives it to the poor people. He comes back that night, and there's not enough food for them to eat, and he goes to sleep hungry. The next Thursday night comes, and again the same process happens, that she prepares and cooks the food, and then she gives it to this young boy, and she says, go give it to the poor of the city. The boy himself is hungry, he has not eaten, but he goes and he fulfills the wish of his mother, and he comes back home and goes to sleep hungry. When the third week comes, the mother again, the boy is hungry, but she prepares the food and says, go give it to the poor. This week the boy loses his self-control and he finds a corner, sits and eats the food himself, and comes home and goes to sleep. That third week the woman says that I saw in my dream that I saw my husband, and he said, tonight that sadaqah that you wanted to give has finally reached me. When the woman wakes up, she goes to her son and she says, tell me, what did you do different this week than you did the other weeks? And the boy explains and he says, oh mother, I have been hungry but I have fulfilled your wishes, but this time I could not resist, so I ate myself. The explanation of this parable and this story is that sometimes we want to do good deeds. We want the world to acknowledge the good deeds that we do. We want to help those people who are less fortunate. But at times within our own family, within our own community, within our own extended relatives, those who have a right upon us, there are needy who we are not paying attention to. There are responsibilities that we have to take care of our own expenses within our own house. That we should pay attention to these people without them having to ask. First, to ensure that our rights within the house have been taken care of, and then we give to the charity and to the outside and those who are in need after that. And our own Prophet has explained that there is no charity when your own family is in need first. Therefore, the obligation that comes when we talk about spending in a state of difficulty is also to ensure that we have taken care of the responsibilities in our family. This is the first point of where our Imam explains that one who spends in a state of difficulty, I will guarantee him a house in heaven. The second of these points, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Wa afsha as-salam fil alam. To speak out and to present the greetings of as-salam and to bring these greetings into the world and announce them to the people. Here the Imam is emphasizing the tradition of Islam to say salam out loud and to introduce and to greet everyone with salam. Many times it happens that if we have friends and acquaintances, to them we are quick to begin the conversation with salam. In our communities though, what's happening is amongst our children, amongst our younger generations, the practice is coming that we begin with, hey, what's up? How's it going? What do you want? How are you? Hello. To change this to the concept of beginning our conversation with salam, and not just the idea of saying salam even on the phone to each other, but think about it. Many times we know who's on the other side of that phone. We know it's my brother, we know it's my sister, we know it's my mother. We still begin with hello. We don't begin with salam alaikum. Though we know. The idea of this, as well as to say salam to even those who are present in a room when we come in, to say salam to both of our friends and those who aren't our friends, this is the sunnah of our Prophet, to initiate the conversations and to spread this message of salam amongst our communities. One of the most difficult places is even when we talk about children. We look at children, or we look at those who are younger, and we're coming in and we see them playing. We say that, what am I to say salam to them? They don't say salam to me. They are the children, I'm the elder. But this is that process of education. That if I want my children to say salam, they're going to learn to greet each other with salam when I'm the one who is initiating the salam with them. And it happens that a few times when we begin the process of saying salam to these children, that they turn around and then continue that good process that we've taught them to us. And they build a connection and a relationship with us. Our Holy Prophet said, there are 5 things I will continue to do until the day that I die. That as long as I am alive, I will not leave these 5 habits. The first of these, that he will wear rough clothes and clothes of harsh materials. The second, that he will ride the mule without putting a saddle upon it. The third, that he will eat with the lowly people and not only eat with the dignified members, but even the servants of the community. The fourth, that he will be someone who fixes and repairs his shoes with his own hand. And the fifth, he says, that I will say salam to the children so that it becomes a sunnah and a tradition after I have left this world. For the mention of Rasulullah sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The third of these qualities that the Imam mentions will guarantee us a house in Jannah is وَأُتْرَقُ الْمُرَاعَ وَإِن كُنْتَ مُحَقًّا. To quit the excessive argumentation even though you may be right. Al-mura'a is one of the types of argumentation that's discussed in the concept of an opinionated matter. There is mujadila, there are other types of argument as well too, but mura'a in particular refers to, or in general refers to, that type of argumentation on an opinion. And how it comes that we come into this argumentation where we see someone who expresses their opinion and we want to prove them wrong. We want to show that their opinion is not right. For example, I prefer an Android-based phone over an Apple phone. Or if I was to choose a German car, I would choose the Mercedes, not the BMW. Or if I was to go on vacation, I would choose, for example, Hawaii over choosing the Bahamas. And we hear somebody mentioning this and we go through the effort and the discussion of saying, don't you know better? Don't you know that this is a bad idea? Didn't anyone teach you? Or you're so uneducated, and we begin the process of arguing over something that is useless, is pointless. And here the Imam is making the statement that these types of argumentation, even when you're right, leave it. It has no benefit. There is more harm in this type of an argumentation than there is benefit to it. Which is why even Allah in the Quran, He explains in Surah Al-Furqan, verse number 72, one amongst many different verses that discuss this issue. وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَشْهَدُونَ الزُّورَ وَإِذَا مَرُّوا بِاللَّغْوِ مَرُّوا كِرَامًا. And Allah says, and those who do not bear witness to what is false, and when they pass by what is a vain discussion, they pass by nobly. They don't get caught in these conversations. That these matters of opinion are not things that we should, for example, be arguing over, and that we don't get caught up in these debates that have no benefit to it. Allow the other person to have their opinion. You don't like Apple? No problem. You don't like Android? No problem. Why do I have to prove that my opinion is better than yours? Why do I have to prove that my opinion of an object or of ownership of this item over that item is better? If you find a satisfaction in a matter, my skipping over this argument is better for me and for you. Sometimes it happens that these useless arguments become a sin. How? That the consequence of this argument is that now we don't speak to each other. Or in the process of me arguing over this, I call you a name, or I say something abusive to you. By simply making that point in this argument, I now committed a sin. I took something that was innocuous and useless, and I made it an action that presented the anger of Allah and broke relations with my brother. That I didn't give him his place to express his opinion, so he discontinued his relationship with me because of the severity of my action. Therefore, this is one of the points that the Imam mentions, that if you can get past this and skip this point of argumentation, it is something that I will guarantee you a house in heaven. The fourth of these points, and potentially the most difficult of these, with your loudest of salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. وَأَنْصِفُ النَّاسَ مِن نَفْسِكَ. That yield to justice for people even if it is against yourself. The explanation of what does it mean to be just to a person even if it is against yourself, we can find in another one of the traditions from our sixth Imam, where he mentions that 3 of the best deeds is to be just, and he mentions one of them to be just against yourself. And he elaborates and he says, what it means to be just against yourself is that you are not happy to give to someone except what you would like for yourself to receive. That this is to be just against oneself, is to give others what I want for myself. There are many examples of this, but for example, we get into a car accident. Na'uz billah. May Allah protect all of the mu'mineen. And immediately what do? Even if I'm wrong, I blame the opposite party. I blame them. When the police officer comes, I write the report against them. I initiate the claim, though I may have been wrong. We go through and we see this in many places, that for example, a person has a loan that's due. They have the money, but they won't pay it. Why? Because it's difficult for me to go through that process. But let's put the shoe on the other foot. Let's say you gave the loan and somebody else had the money. Would you pay it? Would you want them to pay it? These ideas of treating others, for example, without looking at our right and looking first at the right of the other, become very important. The most practical example of this is where, for example, 2 brothers or a husband and wife get into an argument, or they're about to divorce. And they present to the court, they present to the religious judge, and they start talking about all of the bad things the other person did, but never once declare the mistakes that they made. This is that idea of being unjust to another person, that we're going through this process and exploiting and exposing them, but never admitting that we ever made a mistake in this process. The Imam is explaining that to be just against yourself is one of the things that will be the keys to getting a house within heaven. We see that Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam gives this statement and explains the depth and the tafsir of how to accomplish this in a very thorough manner. He says, choose to be just, even if that means that you will be oppressed because of it. Even if you are a loser, do not step away from justice. And ensure that you are on the right path, rather than you be the winner, or you win the right, but you have oppressed the rights of another. This explanation of the Imam, that it's better to be a loser but be on justice, than to be a winner but be the oppressor and the zalim over another, is one of the most significant elements in the signs of the lovers of Ahlul Bayt. One of the keys and one of the signs of this final time that we are in right now is that the Ahlul Bayt have explained that in this time, أن تكون إما ظالم أو مظلوم ولا غير ذلك. That in this time all people will be one of two categories. Either you will be the oppressor or you will be the oppressed. There will be no third category. In this concept, the importance of this message of how we earn the status in the eyes of Allah is explained to us in this one statement, that be just even if it is against yourself. Don't look at your personal interest. If you want the reward with Allah, don't imagine that you will receive the reward of this world and of the hereafter. Be satisfied that my reward is with Allah, not in this world. The one who can't understand and accomplish this goal is the one who does not have yaqeen in the akhirah. One who does not believe in the Day of Judgment cannot withstand the fact that anyone should be able to overcome them and be someone who has taken a win over them. But the one who understands that the true reward is with Allah and our goal is the Day of Judgment does not worry that another person has overcome them as long as he is not the zalim and the oppressor in this situation. These four keys, if we mention again, that the Imam has mentioned, that first and foremost, to make sure that we are those who give charity without fear of poverty, that we are those who have given and speak the greetings of salam and spread it into the world, those who do not excessively argue even though they are on the side of the right, and finally those who yield to justice even and give people justice even if it is against themselves. That these four are great keys and important akhlaqi elements that we have to establish in our character in our life to attain the reward that the Imam has guaranteed. That if you can fulfill this action, the Imam says, I will ensure your house in paradise. And the houses of paradise are not like the houses of this world. So it is a great reward that we choose to achieve. We ask Allah, by the right of this day, by the right of this majlis and hadirin ghaibin, nad'uka bismika al-azim al-a'zam al-a'azz al-ajall al-akram. Raise our hands in dua 10 times. Ya Allah, 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 Ya Mahmud bihaqqi Muhammad, Ya A'la bihaqqi Ali, Ya Fatir as-samawat bihaqqi Fatima, Ya Muhsin bihaqqi al-Hasan, Ya Qadim al-Ahsan bihaqqi al-Husayn. Oh Allah, accept this small ibadat from us. Ya Allah, give the thawab of this majlis to the marhumin of tonight's sponsor, our marhumin and all those who are in need of dua. Oh Allah, forgive our sins and cover our flaws. Oh Allah, we have gathered here with hajat. By the right of this majlis and the mention of the teachings of Ahlul Bayt, fulfill our hajat. Oh Allah, those amongst our families, our communities, the mu'mineen who are suffering through sickness and disease, Ya Allah, give shafa'at to the mu'mineen wherever they are. Oh Allah, the mu'mineen who are suffering through insecurity and difficulty around this world, Ya Allah, give aman to the believers wherever they are. Oh Allah, hasten the reappearance of Sahibul Zaman. Make us and our families and our lineage from the upright supporters of Sahibul Zaman, and entitle us to the shafa'a of Abu Abdullah in this world and in the hereafter. 1 Surah Fatiha, 3 times Surah Ikhlas, لأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات مع الصلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
زيارة. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهرة سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله، السلام عليك يا وارث، السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله، السلام عليك يا السلام عليك يا وارث نوح النبي الله، السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله، السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله، السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله، السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا وارث علي أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام ولي الله، السلام عليك ابن محمد المصطفى، السلام عليك يا ابن المرتضى، السلام عليك ابن فاطمة الزهراء، السلام عليك ابن خديجة الكبرى، السلام عليك يا سار الله وابن ساري والوتر الموتور، أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين، فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سميت بذلك فرزيت بي، يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامها والأرحام المطهرة، لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تبسك بالمتلهمات ثيابها، وأشهد أنك من دائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين، وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الحادي المهدي، وأشهد أنك أئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والأروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا، وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياء ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبيا بكم موقن بشرائع ديني وخواتيم عملي، وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع، صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى خائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. ذات أصل أكبر عليه السلام. السلام عليكم رسول الله، السلام عليكم نبي الله، السلام عليكم أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليكم الحسين الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها المظلوم وابن المظلوم، لعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سميت بذلك فرزيت بي، زيادة شهداء كربلاء. السلام عليك يا أولياء الله وأحباء، السلام عليك يا أصفياء الله وابدا، السلام عليكم يا أنصار دين الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار رسول الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار فاطمة سيدة النساء العالمين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي محمد الحسن بن علي وزكي الناس، السلام عليك يا أنصار أبي عبد الله، بأبي أنت وأمي تبتم وطابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم وفزتم فوزا عظيما، فيا ليتني كنت معكم فأفوز معكم. ذات يزد باس. السلام عليك أبو الفضل العباس ابن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن سيد الوسيين، السلام عليك من أول القوم الإسلام وأقدم إيمانا وأقوم دين الله وأختم على الإسلام، أشهد أنك قد نسخت لله ولرسوله ولأهيك فنعم له المعاصي، فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سميت بذلك ولعن الله أمة استحلت منك المحارم وانتقت الحرمة الإسلام، فنعم الصابر المجاهد المحامي الناصر وله الدافع عن أخيه المصيب مجيب إلى طاعة الرب الراغب فيما زهد فيه خيره من الثواب الجزيل والثناء الجميل، والحقق الله بدرجتك آبائك في جنات النعيم. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء السلطان أبا الحسن علي بن موسى الرضا، كن شفيعنا وشفيع والدينا في يوم الجزاء، وفقنا الله ذاتك يا مولا ورزق الله شفاعتك في الدنيا والآخرة. السلام عليكم وعلى وقت فاطمة المعصومة ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب الزمان، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان، السلام عليك يا إمام سوى جان، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرزك توأ وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على